Hey y'all, it's Stacy with southernbite.com. Today we're in the kitchen. I'm showing you one of my newer recipes that makes for the perfect tailgate food, the perfect appetizer, the perfect snack. If you are a pickle lover, you're gonna love these fried pickle fritters. Now, this recipe, or a version of it, was going viral all over social media not too long ago. And it was a very simple, basic recipe, and I knew that I could make it better. So I took my recipe for my fried green tomato and okra fritters and morphed that into these fried pickle fritters. Let me show you how easy it is. In a large bowl here, I've got 1.5 cups of self-rising cornmeal. Let's talk about that for a second. If you head to the grocery store, it's likely that you're gonna see 3 different types of cornmeal. You're going to see plain cornmeal, which is just ground corn. You're going to see self-rising cornmeal, which is cornmeal with some type of leavening, normally baking powder, salt, and you're also going to see cornmeal mix. Now this is the ground corn, the plain cornmeal. It has the leavening and it has some flour in it. In this case, we're using self-rising flour. You can use the cornmeal mix if you need to. Just keep in mind that you would replace both the flour and the cornmeal that we use in this recipe with the cornmeal mix. And if you can't find the self-rising cornmeal, head over to the blog, search for fried pickle fritters, and in that blog post, I tell you what you need to do to turn regular cornmeal into self-rising cornmeal. It's just as simple as adding some salt and some baking powder. All right, 1.5 cups of self-rising cornmeal here. To that, I'm adding 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. I've got 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of salt and about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. That can totally be a measure with your heart thing, or if you wanna break out the measuring spoons, you can do that. I'm just gonna stir this together. Now I've got about 1/2 of a sweet onion that I've finely diced. It's gonna go right in here. And my pickles. This is about 4 cups of coarsely chopped pickles. That works to about 8 pickle halves, or about a 32-ounce jar. Now I'm using the Claussen refrigerated kosher deals just because I think those have great flavor. I have chopped these and put them in a bowl with a paper towel just to kind of absorb some of that excess moisture because we don't want to add too much liquid into our mix here. So these are just going to go right in. And I'm just going to stir to coat the pickles and the onions in our dry mixture. Next, I've got about 1/2 cup of buttermilk. To that, I'm going to add a large egg. Now, one of the things that I always recommend is when you're cracking eggs, don't crack them on the side of the bowl. It forces shell fragments up into your egg. Crack them on a flat surface. And always, always, always crack them into a bowl first, because if you do happen to get shell fragments in there, it's much easier to fish them out of this bowl than if we had added that to our mixture. If you do have shell in there, using 1/2 of the shell to scoop it out works really well. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add this egg right into our buttermilk here. And I'm just gonna whisk this together with a fork because it's much easier to combine it here than it is once we add it to our other mixture. All right, once that's combined, we're gonna add it right to our pickle mixture here and just stir to get this all combined. Now keep in mind, this is gonna be a pretty thick batter because we want this to hold together really well, but depending on how much liquid that you got from those pickles, you may have to adjust this a little bit by either adding a little more flour or cornmeal or a little more buttermilk. All right, once we've got this combined, let this rest for a few minutes so that everything kind of sticks together. That gluten is gonna activate because of the liquid and hold these together a little bit better. In a large pan here, I've got about 1/3 to 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. You could use peanut oil. Heating, we want to get this to about 350 degrees. Now once your oil is hot, and there's a couple different ways that you can check that. I've got an infrared thermometer here. This isn't super accurate, but it'll give you a general idea. You can use the end of a wooden spoon. If you put it in there upside down, if it bubbles, it's about ready. You could also sprinkle a little cornmeal. If it sizzles, that's about ready. We just want to keep this at about 350 degrees so that we get that nice golden brown outside. Everything gets cooked through. The thing is that if we cook it at too low of a temperature, what's going to happen is that oil is going to be forced in at that cooler temperature, and these are going to end up being greasy and soggy rather than nice and crispy. To add these to our oil, I'm going to use 2 spoons. You're going to take about a heaping tablespoon, and you can make these as big or as little. If you're feeding a crowd, you could obviously make them a little bit bigger. I'm just going to take a heaping tablespoon and place it right into the oil. And form them just a little bit. We're not going to press them flat yet. We're going to do that when we flip them over. And we're just going to work in batches till we get these all cooked. Okay, once these are nice and golden brown around the edges, you can also tell if they're ready to flip. They'll easily release from the bottom of the pan. If they don't, give them just a few more minutes. The other thing is just keep in mind that when you're turning things like this in hot oil, flip it away from you. And sometimes you might want to have a fork or a spoon just to kind of help you flip them over so that they don't splash down and splash hot oil everywhere. Once we flip them, we're just going to take the back of the spatula and just kind of press them flat a little bit. Not super flat, but just to kind of even them out. All right, once they're done on that side, we're simply going to pull them out. I'm going to drain them on a plate lined with paper towels. You can also take and preheat your oven to the warm setting and just transfer this whole thing right to the oven just to keep them warm as we work in batches through the rest of that batter. All right, once you work through the batch here, you're going to get 12 to 16 fritters just based on how big you get them. Serve these warm with some of my best homemade ranch dressing, some comeback sauce, or just by themselves. They're a great appetizer, a great tailgate food, a great snack. If you're a pickle lover, you're going to want to head over to southernbite.com, search for fried pickle fritters, and get this super easy recipe. Y'all enjoy.